10 years. It almost feels unbelievable when you say it out loud. 10 years since that storm tore across the city, since the lights flickered, since 2 newborn cries filled the same nursery at Crestfall Hospital. 10 years. And life, somehow, moved on. Rebecca Wilson was no longer the tiny baby wrapped in pastel blankets. She was 10 now, tall for her age, confident, sharp, the kind of child teachers described as exceptional. At Crestwood Preparatory Academy, she walked through the hallways with quiet assurance, navy blazer perfectly pressed, braids pulled neatly back from her face. She had her father's posture, or at least that's what people said. Her 5th grade classroom buzzed with energy that morning. Posters of historical figures lined the walls. Sunlight streamed through tall windows. Mrs. Davenport wrote in bold letters across the board, "Family Tree Project. Who do you look like?" The room erupted in chatter. "Oh, I look just like my mom. I'm basically my grandpa's twin." Rebecca smiled at first. It sounded simple, easy. Mrs. Davenport turned around, clasping her hands gently. "I want you all to go home tonight, sit with your parents, pull out old pictures, talk about your family, and then write a composition answering one question." She paused. "Who do you resemble, and how do you know?" Something in Rebecca's chest tightened, just slightly. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was memory, because she had heard that question before. At birthday parties, at church, at charity galas when well-dressed strangers leaned down and smiled too brightly. "She's beautiful, but she doesn't look much like you." Her mother always handled it smoothly, a soft laugh, a graceful deflection. Genetics are fascinating. Rebecca had never thought much about it, until now. Across town, in a completely different world, Elowen sat at a scratched wooden desk inside Eastbrook Community School. The classroom wasn't grand. The paint was slightly chipped. The air conditioner hummed louder than it should. But Elowen didn't notice those things. She was focused. Focused on the board. Focused on her teacher, Mr. Alvarez, who adjusted his glasses and smiled warmly. "For your next assignment, you'll explore your roots. Go home, talk to your families, ask them who you look like, find stories, find pictures, make it personal." The students reacted with excitement. Elowen felt something else, a stillness, because she had heard that question too. From neighbors, from distant relatives, from strangers at the grocery store. "She's stunning, but she doesn't really resemble Maria. Maybe Dante's side." Dante, her father, strong, protective, gentle. And yet, when Elowen looked at him, then at herself, there was always a pause. That evening, Rebecca sat at the marble kitchen island in the Wilson home. The lights glowed softly overhead. Everything about the space whispered comfort, success, stability. Dr. Cynthia Wilson stepped in, removing her coat after a long shift at Crestfall. Edward Wilson followed, loosening his tie. Rebecca didn't waste time. "Mom, Dad, I need help with a school project." Edward smiled. "Of course you do. What's it about?" Rebecca hesitated. "Who do I look like in our family?" The air shifted. It was subtle, but it shifted. Cynthia's fingers tightened around the strap of her purse before she set it down. "That's a lovely project." Rebecca continued. "I need photos. Grandma, great-grandma, cousins, anyone." Edward walked toward the cabinet where old albums were kept. "We've got plenty of history," he said lightly. They gathered in the living room. One album after another opened. Cynthia's mother, deep brown skin, strong cheekbones. Her father, wide smile, dark eyes. Edward's relatives, similar features, familiar patterns. Rebecca leaned closer, studying each photograph carefully. Then she reached up and touched her own cheek. Her skin tone, slightly lighter. Her eyes, hazel, catching the lamplight differently. Her hair, softer curls. She looked up. "Mom?" Cynthia met her gaze. "Who exactly do I look like?" The question lingered in the room. Edward answered first. "You have my confidence." Rebecca gave him a look. "Dad, seriously?" Cynthia forced a gentle smile. "You resemble distant relatives. Sometimes traits skip generations." "Which relatives?" Rebecca pressed. Silence. Just a second too long. Cynthia closed the album carefully. "It's late, sweetheart. We'll dig deeper tomorrow." Rebecca nodded, but she wasn't satisfied. Across town, Elowen sat at a small dining table while Maria brought out an old metal tin filled with photographs. Dante pulled his chair closer. "Let's see who you take after," he said with a grin. They spread the pictures out. Grandparents, great-aunts, cousins, dark eyes, familiar features repeating through generations. Elowen placed one photo beside her own, then another. She compared quietly, carefully. "Mama," she said softly, "who do I look like?" Maria smiled at first. "You have my smile." Elowen didn't smile back. "But not your skin tone." Dante leaned forward. "Maybe Dante's grandfather Matteo. Do we have his picture?" Nothing. Just stories. Elowen's eyes flickered between her parents. She wasn't accusing or becoming suspicious. Not fully, but she was thinking. Later, that week, presentations began. At Crestwood, Rebecca stood confidently in front of her class. "I resemble extended relatives on my father's side," she said, clearly. Mrs. Davenport nodded approvingly. But as Rebecca sat down, her friend Lily leaned closer and whispered, "It's kind of weird, though. You don't really look like your parents." Rebecca's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Across town, Elowen presented her project with quiet strength. "My parents believe I resemble ancestors further back in our family tree." During recess, a boy laughed and said,
"Maybe you were switched at birth."
No.
The kids around him giggled. Elowen didn't, because something about that sentence didn't feel like a joke. That night, Cynthia couldn't sleep. She walked quietly into Rebecca's room, watched her breathe. 10 years of memories flooded her mind. First steps, first words, first day of school. She loved this child with everything inside her. And yet, a whisper echoed in the back of her thoughts. What if? Across the city, Maria lay awake too. Dante shifted beside her. "You're thinking again." Maria stared at the ceiling. "Have you ever wondered why people keep saying she doesn't look like us?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. "No," he said finally, but his voice lacked certainty. At Crestfall Hospital, Nurse Carla sat alone in the dim staff lounge. An old incident report lay in her hands. Storm damage, temporary power outage, maternity ward disruption. Her heart pounded. She could still see it, the flickering lights, the bassinets, the confusion. She had checked the tags, hadn't she? Her hands began to tremble, because for the first time in 10 years, she wasn't sure. And somewhere, in 2 separate homes that same night, 2 mothers stared into the darkness, asking themselves the same question. Who does my child really belong to? The wind outside picked up, not violent, not loud, just enough to remind the city that storms don't always disappear. Sometimes they wait. And in the next episode, an unexpected incident will reveal a secret. And once truth begins to surface, it doesn't go back down quietly.